Greetings and salutations, this is Imperator Vespasian and his trusty sidekick.
Hello.
In front of you, you have our new project, a new building I've built. This is a carrack, or near enough. It's shipwrecked. As you can see, it's actually stuck in the ice and having a really bad time. It's for our Northern Crusade stuff, and I just wanted something a little bit different for our Northern Crusade scenery. And it's basically a ship that's been wrecked in the ice. It's got caught in the ice and the ice has done bad things to it.
Swedish ship.
Yes, it's Swedish, and it's for our, well, it's basically background scenery for our games. I had a lot of fun building it. The reason I did it, it's actually a test of something else I'm going to build, and this was to sort of see how things worked out. It wasn't that easy because I had to build the whole thing at an angle. Originally it was supposed to have the central part here was supposed to be detachable, so you could see inside. But that didn't quite work out the way I planned, so I decided to just do it as a solid model. I had fun with it. I've tried lots of different ways of doing the ice. If I just spin it round, you can see the way the ice is all over the place. It's all broken ice. It's to make it look like the ship sort of sailed through. This is the bit left behind that it broke through, but the rest is all sort of gone up around it. So there she is. She's quite a big ship, a 28mm scale, about the size that some of them were, so it's more or less accurate in scale. And I definitely had a lot of fun putting it together. The ship's got oars. The primary reason for this type of ship was for defence. It's basically a cog, or you think of a large Viking ship, and they put a fighting platform on the front and at the back in order to take on larger ships which were coming around at the time. I think originally it was because the English had designed a type of bireme. Was it a bireme?
No, it just had a massive tower on it. So not really.
No, I think the original because the Vikings were constantly attacking Britain, and the only king to be called great in Britain, he built a fleet of ships which were all biremes. He hired a Northman, an Orc, and an Elf. So the history book says. Elf meaning ancient person from Greece, basically an engineer from Greece. An Orc meaning someone from France, a foreigner. And a Northman meaning a Viking. And they got these three shipbuilders together to design a large ship that could take on the Viking fleet. Because the only way the Saxons could really fend off the Vikings at the time was by sinking the ships at sea before the Vikings actually landed. And the British ships, or the English ships, were very tall, and the Viking ships couldn't scale the ships. Just couldn't scale the walls. They were about 8 feet taller than a Viking ship. And the Norse then upgraded their ships and began to put castles on the front and back, forecastle and an aft castle like this. And that was how it all started. Funnily enough, the same thing happened in the Mediterranean as well. Ships started adding battlements to ships, mainly because of the pirates in the area. So North Africa was overrun by unpleasant people who were pirates, who operated pirate ships. It is kind of the type of ship that Columbus went to America in, but it's earlier. It's an earlier version of that type of ship.
So his would have been more stronger.
A lot taller, a lot higher. The hull would have came up to about here, and the whole back section was actually living quarters and stuff. And it had 3 decks, so it had more decks than the ship. Because it had to carry a huge amount of food because the guy went all the way to America.
Yeah.
and you needed a lot of food. It took a few months to get there.
No, he thought he went to India.
He was on his way to India, yeah, he didn't know America was there.
When he went into America, he said, "Oh yeah, it's India."
Well, he had maps. The English knew where North America was, but in fact we used to go logging there, so we were fully aware that Canada and all that existed. But no one assumed that the island, the continent would go all the way down.
Which is why he thought he could go through north.
Yes, he was trying to go underneath America, and he actually ended up hitting Mexico, which technically would be underneath America. If Mexico wasn't there, he would have made it to, well, China.
Yeah.
And then he would
Japan would hit Japan, and then he would hit China.
Oh, Japan or China, and then he would have been stuffed because he'd be trying to find India. I don't think they realised how big the planet was.
Yeah.
It was way bigger.
It was dark before he got there.
Yeah, they'd run out of food. I know, they did eat a lot of fish, so I don't think they'd actually run out of... But they certainly wouldn't be very well by the time they got there.
Yeah, especially when they get land.
Yeah, you can't live on fish. You can eat fish a lot, but it doesn't do your diet much good. You need fruit. Lots of vitamins in fruit.
Well, fish are very healthy to eat.
They're healthy to eat as long as you eat them with other things.
Yeah,
but if you only eat fish, it doesn't do much good. Unless you eat a lot of fat. If you eat a lot of fat with the fish, like if you live right up north and all you get to eat is polar bears and seals, then it's going to be quite easy because you've got huge amounts of fat you're actually intaking, which helps you to get through the cold weather. Of course, if you go all the way south, all you can eat is penguins because there's basically nothing else there. So. Yeah. Ships at the time had oars as well as sail. The main reason for that is these ships were designed to go through. They were designed to sail through rivers, river deltas, and things like that. They were trade ships, and so oars were very useful for manoeuvring. It's actually quite hard manoeuvring a ship with sails, especially if there's no wind and. You know.
There's a lot like help in this scenario.
Well, later on you would deploy boats and the boats would actually manoeuvre the ship for you, but at this time you didn't need to do that because you had decks of oars to move you around. These particular oars have come to a bad end. The oars have snapped off. I will load these pictures up. I'll do some pictures of it and I'll load them up to my blog. I've moved my blog. I got Shackled to a Corpse and Turbo Miniatures, but I've decided to condense them all into one blog. So go to Imperator Vespasian at Blogspot. Is it Blogspot?
Yeah, that's why I made mine.
Yeah, just go to Imperator Vespasian, type it in, Blogspot, and you'll find these things. Yeah, so it's been an interesting model to do. I really enjoyed doing the snow. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I sort of made it up as I went along, and I think it came out quite well. So you've got lots of snow in the rigging. I based it very much, or the snow effect I based on seeing lots of pictures of Amundsen's ship that was trapped in the ice. And I've always been interested by that expedition. And seeing the ship completely caked in ice gave me a lot of ideas, and it kind of led to this. So, yeah, that's the ship. I'll spin it around. Right, on the ground you have a few casualties that didn't make it. That is a skeleton just sunk into the water. There's a dead guy there with an axe in his head, and there's a dead guy at the far end. So I think they look quite good.
Wouldn't that water preserve you on him?
I don't know, he's a skeleton because he is. Not if you're exposed to the elements, but if you're buried in the ground, yes. The bodies of the American expedition that failed, the one that tried to find the Northern Passage, their bodies are actually pretty well preserved.
Exactly.
They look like they only just died, some of them. Well, not only just, they don't look very well, but their bodies are frozen in time. Right, any questions?
How does he make the snow like that? God, not like that.
Did you just break something?
I put the lid down.
Right. How did you do what?
I made the particles all like that.
The particles of snow. Just the camera down a bit. Right. The snow is done by... I made base text. I put an ivory white colour. I put sand in the ivory white colour, not thin sand, medium sized ballast. And then I mixed it in with some pure white and a little bit of glue, not too much glue. And I mixed the whole mixture up, and then I just painted it on. And the great thing about it is it clings here, and it hangs quite well, and it made the stalactites or stalactites, whichever one goes down. And I thought that looked quite cool, and it was a really good effect. I mean, you saw it as I was building it, so you got to see all the different stages, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's not that easy to do. It wasn't that easy putting the whole thing together. But when I started actually doing it, it actually turned out easy once I started doing it. But actually, the beginning of the project was quite stressful. Especially as I decided to do the ship at an angle, because it just looks cool. And because it's at an angle, the ship has a tendency to roll downwards, because when I was putting the base text on, quite a few bits were sort of gunking up at one end because it was quite runny. So I thickened it up a bit in order to do it properly, and I thinned it out because originally I actually put it on a little bit deeper than it is. Obviously I could have solved that by pushing the model up, but it doesn't matter. Next question.
Water, what's that? How do you make the water?
The water is water effect from Bicello.
Looks really cool.
Yeah, it's nice. You can get a nice shape out of it. It's just painted onto a flat surface. You just paint, but I haven't painted it on too thickly. But you do get that nice slight ripple effect, which I think just looks quite good. It's overall been a really fun project to do. Let's zoom out and get a nice overall view of it. Any more questions?
No. No, I think that's it.
So it's effectively a wrecked Swedish ship, which kind of fits into our gaming plans. I've also got a little bit on the top where you can put a figure, which is quite good. I had to do the angle of the ship so figures could still stand on it without rolling off. As I mentioned before, the problem with the base text, I did adjust the angle of the ship a little bit while I was building it. And I had to lower it slightly. But that's just part of design. So nothing else to say?
No.
No. Well, that's boring then, isn't it? Well done. Yep, as you can see, the figures actually fit on it. And bear in mind, these figures have very, very slippy bases because they're made entirely of perspex.
Yeah, I want to test it out.
But the figures actually stand on without rolling off, without sliding off. You have to be careful what angles you put things at if you want to put figures on them. But yeah, this one worked out quite well. So they're Swedes too.
Yep.
Yeah, they're royal Swedes. They're part of the royal household, hence the shield.
It's not these instead then.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll do. The design of the ship historically was very useful because you would have your pikeman or your spearman on the mid deck, this deck here, and then you would have your bowman on the fore and aft decks, and they would be able to shoot at the enemy, and your pikeman on the bottom would fend attacks off. So it was quite an interesting evolution in ships. Obviously after cannon were invented, it didn't become...
Pretty useless.
There was less need for that sort of thing, and also there was a lot more rigging by that time. Ships had additional sails, so there was a lot more places to put snipers and things like that when muskets came about. At this period you're using crossbows and bows mainly, and you have yourself a nice bow platform there to shoot from. Sadly, the ship isn't going to be moving during our games,
No.
but it is a useful defensive feature if you want to use it. Right, so is that it?
Yep.
Right, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy seeing the model for the first time. I know you're going to ask, do I have a step-by-step thing of how I built it? I didn't photograph it as I was building it.
I didn't say it was a test, right?
It is a test. This was a learning curve, and some of the stuff I originally did isn't on this model. So you would have seen pictures of it and then gone, where's that? So I did do quite a bit of altering. But I will probably photograph the next one I do.
Yeah. Might do a, this is what it looks like now. This is what it looks like after.
Yeah, yeah. I have done that before with the other stuff I've built.
Yeah.
I've got a step-by-step on my blog at the moment, Imperative Vespasian on Blogspot, of how to build a forge. If you have a look at that. That's the only thing on there at the moment. I haven't had time to load other stuff up. But yeah, there it is. Last point, the rigging at the top. The rigging just there is actually made out of crepe paper. You don't have to go out and buy it. If you order anything from Adler, your figures are wrapped in crepe paper, which will go great for sales.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's it. So thank you very much for watching. Over to him for the outro.
So if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. And comment down below what you think of the wrecked Swedish
Galley.
galley.
Yeah.
That's it from me.
And everything from him. Goodbye.
See ya.